television saying their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans.
Me.
But those were your words, so I'm asking.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people.
She believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. She doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something.
The American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan.
It's truly so crazy that these are the options that they're giving us. They are not even trying to hide the fact that this current way of the world, it's done, it's over. Watching this last debate that seemed pretty even to me, but the next day the mind-controlling media telling everyone what to think said that Kamala Harris won. It was literally the worst debate I've ever watched. As I watched that debate, it confirmed to me the feelings that I already had. We should be expecting chaos. I know that people live with a sort of blind optimism, but if you come to reality, it is very clear, and I mean, I could show you. Both of these candidates, while they spoke about things that didn't matter, they both mentioned that they had plans. When you actually listen to their plans, it is the telltale sign that you must be expecting problems. The solution that both of these candidates, who are supposed to be the next leaders of the supposed most powerful country in the world, their answers, both of them, to the problems in this world, not just one of them, but both of their answers, is to spend more money or to collect less money through tax breaks.
Which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page.
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
Thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President Trump, we have to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
She has
please.
a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's
you, Mr.
what her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need.
Their solution is to add to the debt. Look at the debt. Now at $35.3 trillion. Their answers is to add even more to it in order to fix our problems, when our actual problem is the amount of debt. I mean, we're about to go through another potential government shutdown at the end of this month. Their answer to our problems is to add more debt. Trump, he speaks about his tariffs and the fact that the Biden administration keeps them on with China. And we ignore that this is one of the reasons why prices are so high. And we also ignore that these tariffs are doing nothing about the overall problem that we're facing. The actual problem with inflation is the amount of money that they're printing and they're spending, and they have no plans to stop it. I mean, this is the craziest thing ever. These candidates went on stage and are telling the masses to vote for them because they're going to add to the problem. I mean, they are not hiding the fact that they are not trying to save this country, but they want it to fail. But the masses are so asleep, they are fighting for personalities while they don't realize that they're actually fighting against themselves. The world is truly in the strong delusion. The world has major problems headed their way. But through all of that reality, the way I feel, I look at the world in a completely different way. For me personally, this is truly a blessed time to be alive. I'm so excited for our future. But you know what? There used to be a time that I did not feel this way. I remember very early on when I was being awakened to the deception that this world has placed us under, and I was so disgusted with this world. At the time, I didn't even want to have another child because why would I bring another baby into the satanic world? That's what I thought. I was overwhelmed by how evil everything was. It was too much for me to deal with. These were the feelings I had back then. And I realize now that while I knew evil, at that time, I did not truly know good. Meaning, I knew Satan and his deceptions, and I knew there was even more that I didn't know, and that honestly angered me. But while I knew all this, I did not know enough about our Father. I mean, I knew about our Father, but still was overcome and focused too much on the evil and the conspiracies to actually really know our Father. I'm thankful that that did not last, because when I became overwhelmed, I just decided to seek out our Father more and understand why He allowed these things to get so bad. I mean, that's really why I started to seek Him. But as I truly started to seek Him, I began to question my thoughts about not feeling blessed to be alive during this time. His words and what the prophets were saying, it did not match with the feelings that I had. Something wasn't right. And so I decided to change my way of thinking, and I decided to take our Father at His word and believe Him. And when I made this decision, my life began to change for the better. And so I made a choice to diligently seek Him, even at the expense of being ostracized from everyone that was once close to me. It was the best decision of my life, because not only was I awakened to how evil this world was, but I was embraced and completely swallowed whole by the love our Father has for us. He showed me and He told me He loved me, and He would always be there for me, even if the many people in the world who said they loved me turned their back on me. And they did, but I always still felt love. I knew with assurance that He would always be there for me if I never left Him. And so for me, it made absolutely no sense that even though this world was so evil, that I felt that I was not blessed to be alive during this time. It made no sense, because I was blessed. And in fact, what He did shortly after I realized all this is that He blessed my wife and I with a surprise baby. And this boy, he came out of nowhere, but he was literally a blessing. And He also showed me at the same time, I would not give you a new son if your future was not a blessing. Raise your sons up in me. He told me to continue to seek Him, and I did. When I had questions, He showed me how to find them. He showed me many things. He provided for me in many ways that were just supernatural. And it led me to the place where I am right now, that I'm able to confidently, with 1,000% assurance, tell His people who they are and provide the receipts. And He also comforted me with dealing with those people dealing in the strong delusion, because for me, everything is so crazy, and it's so easy to see that it's all crazy. For a while, it was really hard for me to deal with it. I couldn't understand how people could not see it. But He explained to me that this is their judgment because they do not love Him. They love lies, so He is allowing them to live in them. The people here in the United States following all this nonsense, they're already in judgment. He showed me the same way we have dealt with the sins of our ancestors is the same way these people are dealing with the sins of their ancestors in their own rebellion. They don't love Him, and so He's given them up to lies. Everyone in the strong delusion refuses true repentance, and therefore they must live in the lie. And there's nothing we can do if they do not choose the way, the truth, and the life. And even though all these people are in the churches and they say they know Jesus and whatnot, they do not know Him. They do not know our Father. They know a false religion, a lawless religion, and it's their choice because they have the truth in their hands. And they made decisions to follow everything else instead of making him the priority and understanding all that he has said and promised. I was shown that I just needed to let go and just teach people about him, and if they love him, they will come out of the strong delusion. And the overwhelming reality of this has brought me peace. And so I have made a decision to teach the truth of the scriptures, trying to hold nothing back and deal with some of the biggest issues that the devil created to divide and deceive. And for most people in the strong delusion in the United States, this is in their hearts, whether they want to admit it or not. People really can't get past race. And in this deception that surrounds race, one of the most important topics in regards to the end times is masked beneath this divisive topic. The truth is that you cannot understand these scriptures when you don't understand the people that they were written about and written by. You can't understand what is coming in the end times if you believe it's all about a whole different group of people. And so this recent docuseries, We Are Not Black People, it was not received by all, but I never expected it to be because it was not meant for all. The We Are Not Black People docuseries was made to speak life into the dry bones and provide clarity in areas where the devil was sowing doubt. It was made to show with assurance for anyone who actually watched in full who it is those classified as black people actually are. It was made to prepare everyone for the Great Tribulation. We Are Not Black People was made to confirm to the house of Israel and Judah who they truly are, and that it's time to walk in this truth. And so now that this awakening has been done, it is time to bring the discussion to where it was always meant to go. The question must be, now that you know who you are, what are you supposed to do with this information? And that's what needs to be discussed. I really went hard in that series to go over this full predicament that leads you to understand your identity, and that you actually have promises that were made in regards to you that you can be a part of if you make the right choices. So understand that if you have not watched the We Are Not Black People docuseries, and you don't truly understand why the people called black people scattered all around the world are actually the true descendants of the biblical Israelites, then please take your time to go through that series so you can understand this with assurance. This topic is extremely important in regards to the times that we're in today. But now that this has been made clear, we need to shift gears because your identity is important, but not more important than understanding how you are to be in this identity. You see, there's a risk for people who have been told that they are nothing and have no history. People who have been conditioned to think of themselves as nothing. When they hear that what they were told was actually a lie, and they actually do have a history and have a future that is promised to them, and then they also understand that there will be judgment to their enemies, it can bring about many different emotions. One thing it can absolutely provide is pride, and this needs to be put in check because that does not come from Yah, but from Satan. Don't think that now that you know who you are, you can't be tricked by the enemy. The complete opposite is true. And for many of you, you best believe that Satan is going to try to attack you to get you off track. The devil is a master manipulator and knows how to switch the focus and make it be about us and not about the actual priority, which is Yahweh. And you cannot allow this. So please do not allow pride into this understanding because you will just turn to a rebel. And though you may gather with us, you will not come into the kingdom. And so it's important to have the right mindset about the subject because understand it's not about us. This is all about the Most High. Yahweh said that when he scatters us, from there you will seek Yahweh your Elohim, and you will find him if you seek him with all your heart and with all your soul. When you are in distress and all these things come upon you in the latter days, when you turn to Yahweh your Elohim and obey his voice. For Yahweh your Elohim is a merciful El. He will not forsake you, nor destroy you, nor forget the covenant of your fathers, which he swore to them. That's Deuteronomy chapter 4, verses 29 through 31. He said, in these latter days, we will turn back to him and obey his voice, and he will remember the covenant he made with our forefathers. So now that you know who you are, the next important thing is to help you turn back to him. So what I'm led to do now is help you become Israel. It is time to cleanse from the filth that we were perverted and tainted by and come back to him in truth. And so this is extremely important. He wants us to come back to him, and therefore he must be our priority and our focus. And so what needs to be done is bring people back to Yahweh in truth. And that's what we will now discuss. Let me also say this. It's important to understand that these next messages, they're not just directed to the dry bones. They are not just for the natural branches, but the wild branches as well. This is for all who desire to prepare themselves for our Father and be what He desires. Like I did in the docuseries, I will be revisiting some topics covered in the past videos while also bringing out some new information. What we're going to do right now is discuss how to be Israel. Let's begin. Okay, so like I said, this is not just something for the dry bones that are awakened. There was a main question in this series, and it was, what about me? How do I know if I'm Israel? The first thing is that the beautiful thing our Father has done is He has given all a way to come to Him and be forgiven. All can be forgiven for the sins of themselves and their ancestors, and regardless of your heritage, you can be grafted into Israel and be with us. For those of us who truly love Yahweh, we accept all who truly love our Father. I mean, it's commanded in our Torah to do just that. In the Torah, He writes, "And if a stranger dwells with you in your land, you shall not mistreat him. The stranger who dwells among you shall be to you as one born among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am Yahweh, your Elohim." Leviticus chapter 19, verses 33 and 34. Yahweh commands, "Therefore circumcise the foreskin of your heart, and be stiff-necked no longer. For Yahweh, Elohim, is Elohai ha-Elohim, and Adonai ha-Adonim, the great El, mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality nor takes a bribe. He administers justice for the fatherless and the widow, and loves the stranger, giving him food and clothing. Therefore, love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt." Deuteronomy chapter 10, verses 16 through 19. It is the position of this ministry to teach all who love our Father what it means to love Him and serve Him. And I reject no one who truly loves Yah and wants to serve Him in truth. If you serve our Father, you are not a threat to me. You are a blessing, and I sincerely love everyone who loves our Father in truth and those that accept His people. And so please understand that these messages are for all who desire to be ready for our Father. And listen, for the Israelites who have a problem with that, don't come here to troll. Make another page and preach whatever it is you feel. I have chosen to stand before our Father on this decision, and that is my choice. If you don't like it, go someplace else. My point is that all that desire the kingdom truly must come in truth, and anyone who loves the truth, I love you. And it is my desire to help you see the kingdom, whether you are a natural branch or a wild branch. We must all live in this truth together. So please know, while certain things said may be directed to the dry bones, don't ever feel excluded. Apply what is meant for you. This was always the way of Israel. So let's get to it. The first place to begin is an important clarification. I alluded to it in the intro. In knowing how to be Israel, let's be clear about something. Knowing who we are is not meant for show or for vanity. It's not about wearing a shirt that says, "I am a Hebrew." It's not about wearing outfits and looking different to get attention. It's not about knowing what to check on your box when they ask a question about your race or nationality. Let's be clear, we are still in captivity here. We are still scattered. We are not in our land. We do not have any secular power to make laws or changes that will force the world to acknowledge us as Israel. Don't expect the world to care. They are all in the strong delusion that is leading them to the coming of the lawless one. This truth is not for them. They're going to reject it. This is what the coming conflict in the end times is going to be all about. Don't expect for the people to respect this or know this. This truth is not for the lost, so do not expect them to understand. Knowing that you are Israel is not just about knowing your heritage. What you must understand is that what being Israel means is that you know that you are a person in covenant with the Most High. And now that you know this, you are responsible for being obedient to Him and serving Him the way He desires. The culture of Israel back in the day, it was different. Their mark was circumcision. Now, I don't know how that culture was to know if someone was circumcised or not. Their ways were very different back then. But this sign of circumcision showed that you were someone in covenant with the Most High. Today, obviously, we don't go around showing our genitals to prove this. And right now, there are many who have this cut, and it doesn't mean that they are in covenant with Yah. And though I do believe in circumcision for the natural branches, right now our sign of being a covenant is displayed a little different. Our sign right now of being Israel comes through our obedience and being what Yahweh desires, and that is to be set apart. If you're going to enter into Yah's kingdom, we must recognize what our ancestors did wrong and correct it. We must be what Yahweh intends for us to be. He said, "And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which you shall speak to the children of Israel." Exodus chapter 19, verse 6. "For I am Yahweh your Elohim. You shall therefore consecrate yourselves, and you shall be holy, for I am holy. Neither shall you defile yourselves with any creeping thing that creeps on the earth. For I am Yahweh, who brings you up out of the land of Egypt to be your Elohim. You shall therefore be holy, for I am holy." That's Leviticus chapter 11, verses 44 and 45. "And you shall be holy to me, for I, Yahweh, am holy, and have separated you from the peoples, that you should be mine." That's Leviticus chapter 20, verse 26. You see, and I'm going to cover this more in depth later, but Yahweh desires us to be set apart to him and a kingdom of priests. We are to be examples of Yah's righteousness and his goodness. We are to be proclaimers of his way. The reason why our ancestors were chastised is because they did not get it. They were a stubborn, stiff-necked people who thought too highly of themselves, which led them into constant rebellion. They never understood the purpose of the Torah, and this is why Messiah came and he showed us. So it is important that you have the right mindset now that you know who you are. So here's the deal, and this is probably going to be the hardest thing. The first thing you need to erase is the assimilation that we have been programmed under. You must understand that this world that you have grown up in has worked to assimilate you. Your schools taught you assimilation, how to be an American, South African, Cuban, Jamaican, etc. You were assimilated into the ideals of the nation you were scattered into. They indoctrinated us. This is mainly what the school system is for, to assimilate us and our children into the values of the nation. And now this assimilation is being directed towards world governance. Assimilation is what we have gotten. That's what the civil rights agenda, it was all about. Assimilation. Participating in their politics and voting, it's all about your assimilation into a nation that is not yours, that they want you to feel that you're a part of and believe you have a say. The country that you are in, no matter where you are in this world, it was never yours. You do not have any power or control or a say. So if you ever believe that, snap out of it. That power to the people nonsense is a delusion. Also, please know, if you grew up in the Christian church, you were also being assimilated into a false European faith that has nothing to do with your true values and the truth of the scriptures. In Spain, when our people rejected Christianity, we don't know if they actually rejected Messiah more than they were rejecting the lawlessness. Because Christianity in Europe, it was more about doing things their way than doing things Yah's way, which is why they would force them to eat pork. I mean, what would be the reason to force people to eat pork? Eating pork to the Roman Church was a sign of allegiance and assimilation. It says you don't care that much about Yahweh's Torah. And so they use many different tests just like that. What does it mean to assimilate? To assimilate is to take in information, ideas, or culture and understand them fully. So what the goal of this modern world has been is to assimilate you into American, South African, Brazilian, Jamaican, Haitian, whatever nation you're scattered into, accepting those values as being your own. So many of you cling to these nations as your identity. You wear their flag like that represents who you are. That doesn't represent you. You need to make a choice on who you are. In America, in the States, they say hip-hop culture is black culture. But that's not our culture. Hip-hop culture, and I'm not speaking about the way it was originally started. Do not misunderstand me. Hip-hop culture today, modern hip-hop, is European lawless culture with rhythm and swag. It's repackaged lawlessness in a way that will make our people accept it. You must understand, yes, you are scattered into these other nations, but the ways of these nations are not your values. These are modern-day lawless cultures that were taught to you. And listen, being that the world is moving towards Satan, you need to understand that these modern day cultures many identify with today, for the most part, are satanic values preparing the world for Satan. So let me be clear as day here. When you are knowing that you are Israel, this comes with an understanding that you must be different than everyone else in this world. The world won't recognize that you are Israel because you wear a shirt or a funny outfit. They will recognize you are different because you are the only ones in this world living as our Father desires. So I want to make this clear, especially for my young brothers and sisters. Being Israel is not just about your heritage, but it's about the fact that you are different. You are set apart, and you now must be so. You must be set apart. You must be different than the rest of the world. You must walk in strength that says, I don't do things that you do. I don't tolerate the things that you tolerate. I don't accept that nonsense that you do. I don't eat those things that you do. Go somewhere else with all of that. And you must be strong enough to be able to deal with the conflict that this stance creates. We are not weak. Do you know that one of the first things Satan did when he began his assimilation process in the United States is he removed the male influence out of our homes? The Israelite man is a strong figure and a movable force when he is convicted. When we know who we are and we walk in it, you are not playing with us. And it is us that protects our women, our children, and our community from going too far in this world. And they knew that. So what they had to do was remove our men and our strength. And they were successful because in our community today, what we absolutely lack are strong men. So for every Israelite male watching, it is important that you hear this. We need you back. We need your strength. And for my young Israelite men watching, I am calling you to grow up in strength. Regardless if you have a father in your life or not, you must grow and be a man of Israel. And that means strength and conviction, walking in it, knowing how to be a leader, not a follower, not being selfish, only caring about yourself, but caring about your family and your community. And at the priority, caring about our Father. You must grow to be an example and walk in it. I read many of the comments from your parents that say that many of you young men are watching. And so if you're watching, I am calling you right now to grow up in strength and be who you are supposed to be. If you don't have a father in your home, I understand it can be hard if you don't have that example. Pick up the scriptures and follow your forefathers. Understand what they were doing. Go back to the Old Testament and understand the history of your ancestors, those that were walking in strength in the truth. And you will see the strength that they had and grow to be like them. You will find many different examples of strength, and you will understand how it is that you're supposed to be. Being Israel means being set apart. And the thing you must understand is that the devil has been desperately working to make that not the case. This is why Christians are the same as everyone else. There is no difference between them and the world. But all of us, knowing who we are, no longer have any more time for any of that. Being Israel means that you know that you are in covenant with Yahweh and you are required to be obedient to him. In Deuteronomy, like I read earlier, it says, "From there you will seek Yahweh your Elohim, and you will find him if you seek him with all your heart, with all your soul." When you are in distress and all these things come upon you in the latter days, when you turn to Yahweh your Elohim and obey his voice, for Yahweh your Elohim is a merciful El. So he understands what you're going through, and he wants you to turn back to him with all your heart and with all your soul. And if you do this, you will find him and you will be strengthened. So understand, knowing that you are Israel means nothing if you're not choosing to turn back to him with your whole heart. If you do not fully love him, if you love this world and you're so attached to things you can't let go of, then don't claim to be Israel, because you will be rejected by him and by us. And see with that thing that you can't let go of, see where that brings you in this coming world that's about to collapse. Listen, I have 4 sons and I love my sons, but I warn them that if they choose this world over Yah, I will reject them. I mean it. I play no games with this world. You are not being called to be Israel in order to just stoke your ego or finally have some kind of identity. If that's what you're trying to do, you're not Israel. Let me give you an example. I have family and friends that I have shared this truth with for many years. They know the truth, they've heard it. But some of them, even though they don't want to admit it, they like American ideals too much. Or some of them, they like the lawless attitudes that America has taught them. They are attached to that hip-hop culture that tells them that they can live lawlessly. Or they have a to each his own attitude. But for the most part, the problem is that they're weak. They don't have enough strength to go against their true enemy. Understand, though their bloodline is from Israel, they are not Israel. I do not consider them Israel. They are Americans. Actually, I tell them they're Babylonians. Either way, I don't accept them. Now, I haven't given up on them, but things are changing right now. What I'm saying is that we don't have a culture of tolerance. We don't have a culture of acceptance of just anything. We are very much the opposite. If you are assimilated and you choose this wicked world, I reject you, and you have no part with the world that I am preparing for. This is why Paul said, "But now I have written to you not to keep company with anyone named a brother who is sexually immoral or covetous or an idolater or a reviler or a drunkard or an extortioner, not even to eat with such a person. For what have I to do with judging those also who are outside? Do you not judge those who are inside? But those who are outside, Elohim judges. Therefore, put away from yourselves the evil person." 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 11 through 13. This is the culture of Israel. We do not deal in tolerance. Now, understand, that does not mean that we don't help people that struggle. That's not what I'm saying. We help those who genuinely are trying. But we don't condone sin and tolerate it just because they say that they're trying. That's not help. But either way, if you say you're Israel, but you love wickedness, you are not Israel. You're an American, or whatever nation you're attached to that you have chosen over Yah. This is our culture. We do not deal in tolerance. This is the way it has always been. This is the way our ancestors dealt with their people that converted into the ways of the other nations. For instance, when you see in the New Testament and they spoke about Greeks, people today, they apply this term very wrong. Like with this verse, people use it all the time. There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither slave nor free. There is neither male nor female. For you all are one in Messiah Yahusha. Galatians chapter 3, verse 28. In Christianity, people use this verse to basically mean that the Jew no longer matters and we're all the same. And they use it like this because of a huge misunderstanding of the culture of the Yahudim at that time. I taught this recently in another series, but I will revisit it because it emphasizes the point that I'm trying to make. When verses like this speak of Greeks in the scripture, it's important to understand that he is not talking about all Greeks. He is not talking about the pagan Greeks that worship Zeus and Apollo. No. You must understand the history of the Yahudim and the Greeks in order to understand this. For anyone that knows a little bit of history, it should be no mystery that at some point, the Greeks, as they began to build their empire, they came upon the Yahudim and set out to conquer and control them. They came as they did with all other civilizations that they conquered. They set out to spread their culture and their language. This is a process called Hellenization. The world began to change because of Greece. Alexander, unlike the Persians before him, did not dream of uniting all his conquests into one great empire, but he wanted to merge all the conquered peoples into one great cultural unity. It was not about them all being the Greek Empire. It was about transforming their way of life to adopt to the Greek culture, which was far more powerful. In his conquest, he built new cities and he enlarged the old ones. He encouraged Greeks, especially the veterans of his army, to settle in these cities and teach the native population how to live like Greeks. Within a generation, the entire ancient East had a new way of life. There was new ideas, new names for their old gods, new language, new military tactics, and more importantly, new markets for trade. And you know what? This is very much like the way of America today. American values and culture is spread all around the world, the same way as the Greeks did. Anyways, as the world changed and the Yahudim also got conquered by the Greeks, leaving out the many of them that revolted and fought back against the Greeks, in which we know as the Maccabean Wars, we'll leave them out for right now. We should understand that there were other Yahudim that assimilated. There were Yahudi, meaning Jews that were in search of better opportunities to make a living, and they chose to leave home and go amongst the Greeks. And slowly, Yahudim settlements grew up along the coast of the Mediterranean, on the islands of Greece and abroad. And this was the beginning of the Yahudim diaspora, the scattering of the Yahudim. These scattering Yahudim assimilated with the Greek way of life, and they learned the Greek language and adopted some Greek customs and ideas. They accepted Hellenization. And you have to understand that this scattering and assimilation, this was not involuntary. It was not like when Yah took them out of their land and sent them to Babylon or Assyria. When that happened, that was Yahuwah doing this. This scattering, it was different. They chose the Greek way of life over the way of Yah. And the Yahudim that stayed, they did not respect any of them that did this. So for the ones that chose that Greek way of life, that first generation that settled, they did not understand much Greek. Perhaps the next generation understood both Hebrew and Greek. The third generation then understood very little Hebrew. Their native tongue, it was now Greek. They read Greek books and accepted Greek ideas. They could not read Hebrew, and this was a problem for many that still did not want to completely walk away from their faith. So they encouraged their children to study the Hebrew language so that they might be able to become acquainted with the ideas of the Yahudim in their original way. And they also translated the Torah, the first 5 books of Moses, in Greek. It's called the Pentateuch, meaning simply 5 books, so that they did not truly forget where they came from. Because 70 learned scribes were a part of this translation, the Pentateuch was called the Septuagint, which means the 70. And so there now was a separation. The Yahudim were split between the true ones and the sellouts. Those who assimilated into Greek society were basically labeled as the sellouts, and they were not respected by the Yahudim in Judea. The true Yahudim, these are the ones that did not accept Hellenization and that assimilation, and the ones who fought the wars against these same Greeks, they did not respect those Yahudim that assimilated. And because of this, they no longer refer to them as Yahudim any longer. They refer to them as Greeks or Gentiles. And this is very crucial to understand. To them, these people, they were not Jews anymore. They were Greeks. For instance, we can find evidence of this when we go to the book of John, when Yahusha was speaking. Then Yahusha said to them, I shall be with you a little while longer, and then I go to him who sent me. You will seek me and not find me, and where I am, you cannot come. Then the Yahudim said amongst themselves, where does he intend to go that we shall not find him? Does he intend to go to the dispersion among the Greeks and teach the Greeks? John chapter 7, verse 33 through 35. They were thinking Yahusha was about to leave them and go talk to those sellout Greeks, which is why he was going where they wouldn't find him, because they had no business dealing with them. So understand, if you loosely use this word Greek to think he was speaking about the natural-born Greeks, these pagans, then you will grossly misinterpret what he is saying. When he writes things like, for there's no distinction between a Yahudi, Jew, and Greek, for the same Yahuwah over all is rich to all who call upon him, Romans 10 verse 12, if you think he is talking about Alexander's kin, you will grossly misunderstand what he is saying. And this is how Christians interpret it today. Notice, he doesn't say Persian or Babylonian, but Greeks specifically. It's because of who he is referencing. He is not speaking about the pagan Greek Gentiles. So like I said, if you apply that way of thinking and understanding when you see the word Greeks, you can absolutely apply a false understanding to what Paul is saying. And unfortunately, many do. So please understand when he is referring to Greeks, he is not referring to all Greeks. He is not referring to the same people that came and tried to conquer the Yahudim and killed many of their people. He is not speaking about the same Greeks that worship Zeus and perform their wickedness, orgies, and sorceries. He is referring to the Yahudim who assimilated into Greek culture voluntarily. Okay, so again, why did I bring this up? First, this teaching, it needed to come out at some point because as you break out of all this falsehoods, you're going to come against people with this Christian doctrine, and they're going to use these scriptures against you out of context. And so it's important that we get that out the way and correct it, so you know how to deal with it. When they use those scriptures, simply ask them, what Greek are they talking about? Start the conversation with that. But either way, The reason I bring this up is because I want you to understand the culture. Those who choose to be assimilated, in being Israel, our culture is not acceptance or tolerance of them, but rejection. So, for the assimilated, those that choose to be attached to Western values and do not desire to turn to Yah, let them be black people. They can be African Americans. Let them be whatever they are, because they are not Israel. You know, the funny thing is that many of them, ironically, call themselves Greeks. It's not a coincidence that those in those black college fraternities call themselves Greeks, because Satan tricked them into joining his Greek clubs, where they literally take oaths against being who they are. For instance, alphas take oaths calling themselves Ethiopians, spiritually tying themselves to the fate of the Ethiopians. But that's another topic. I don't want to get too deep on you. My point is they call themselves sellouts and they don't even know it. What I am saying is that there are many that are of the bloodline of Israel that are not awakened and don't desire to be, or maybe they have been awakened and they reject it. Just because you know your true heritage and you know you're Israel, it does not matter if you choose to be assimilated into American, Babylonian, Western values. By knowing that you are Israel, it means knowing that you are a set-apart people in captivity in another nation, and you must now be the exact thing that they do not want you to be, and that is loyal to Yahuwah, obedient to Yahuwah. For examples of this, go back to the book of Daniel and understand what these Yahudim did when they were held captive in Babylon. There are great examples there for you to follow. You need to understand that when they took us here in captivity, they went out of their way to teach us that his Torah didn't matter and his commandments didn't matter. If you are Israel, you must reject this way of thought. And no, we don't follow his Torah and his commandments for salvation. We fully accept Yahusha as the redemptive blood of the new covenant. We follow his Torah and his commandments because his way is right for us. We trust him and we accept his authority. And so if he has declared what is right or wrong for us, our lives will be better when we follow it. If you read his Torah and then examine the world today, you will see that everything Satan has pushed in this world is a rejection of our principles. I mean, think about it. What is the main thing that our young men and women struggle with today? It's lust. But if we had our principles, these attitudes, it would not be tolerated. The Torah teaches us, do not prostitute your daughter to cause her to be a harlot, lest the land fall into harlotry and the land become full of wickedness. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 29. That's exactly what happened in this country today. He said, there shall be no ritual harlot of the daughters of Israel, or a perverted one of the sons of Israel. Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 17. You see, the way our people are today is not based off our values. America and their Western values that has spread around the world have taught our men and women to be perverted, to be harlots. Our women prostitute themselves on social media looking for likes, and our young men are not strong enough to reject them because they have no Torah. This is what living assimilated looks like. And listen, we will later talk about all this more. I'm just right now giving examples. But like I said, for examples of this biblically, go back to the book of Daniel and understand what our ancestors did when they were held captive in Babylon. Now understand, your plight is different than theirs. Back then, they knew their original culture, and those like Daniel that decided to stay true to Yahuwah did not turn from their Hebrew faith in serving Yahuwah. Our situation is different because we did not know our culture. Matter of fact, we were told that this is not our culture. All we knew was a bunch of falsehoods. Many of them, they're hard to break. We grew up assimilated into satanic culture and Western values, and we might also have been taught about Yah through Christian doctrines that just lack foundation. So we grew up learning everything wrong, and now we must be retrained into being who it is we're supposed to be. And listen, I'm not saying I'm perfect with it either. I'm growing just like many of you are. It's a daily process of choosing Yahuwah and his ways over the ways of this world and the falsehoods that had disguised themselves as truth. And that's what we're going to discuss. It needs to be understood that becoming Israel is not about you, but about our Father Yahuwah. Whether you are a natural branch or a wild branch, you are now coming back into the root of Israel. And this means you are choosing to be his special, chosen, set-apart people that will live aligned to him. The reason we got in this predicament and were cursed and scattered is because our ancestors were proud and they wanted to do things their way. The people are no different today. But if you're going to be what he desires, you must be different. And that is what your mindset must be focused on. You cannot practice that lawless mindset you may have learned in Christianity and be a proud sinner. Absolutely not. You must desire in your heart to be what our Father desires, and that is a set apart, holy people that is attached to him and are obedient to him. And in order that I help you with this, we need to go over the basics first. So listen, now that you understand what it means to become Israel, you need to know who it is you are in covenant with. So in part 2, we're going to discuss Yahweh and who he is. So please continue on to part 2 and let's discuss Yahweh. Remember, being Israel means being a chosen, set-apart people obedient to Yahweh, keeping his laws, statutes, and commandments as he has always desired his children to do. If you are Israel, you are one who does the will of our Father. Walk in obedience and serve him with your whole heart. And be blessed. Hallelujah. Praise Yah. Okay, thanks again for watching. If this has blessed you, please make sure to like it and share this video with others. If you haven't done so already, please make sure you subscribe to this channel. Yah willing, I upload every Friday. Also, please don't forget to follow this ministry on Facebook and Instagram, as well as on my website, truthunedited.com. If you no longer see this channel any longer on this platform, you can always find this ministry on my website. Please continue to pray for this ministry. Your prayers and support are sincerely appreciated. As always, I want to thank those who have donated to this ministry. Your contribution is a huge blessing to this ministry and helps me continue on with this assignment. Your support is a blessing, and I would not be able to continue without you. I am humbled by your support, and I'm very thankful for you. Be blessed. Okay, thanks again, everyone, for watching. I love you all.